Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jeff Vaughn.
And I'm Lena Wynn. The congressional investigation of potential collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia is heating up again. Yeah, tensions are rising within the team of lawmakers involved in that probe, as the chairman is under intense fire to recuse himself. President Trump is also weighing in. He posted this on Twitter today. Quote, why doesn't fake news talk about Podesta ties to Russia as covered by Fox News, or money from Russia to Clinton, sale of uranium? Question mark, end quote. KCAL 9 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with late details. Dave?
A lot of California Democrats involved in this debate tonight, and in some respects it's become a tug-of-war over Chairman Nunes. Tonight, the battle between two California Congress members continues to escalate in the House Intelligence Committee, and the stakes are high, with Democrats calling on the chairman of the committee to step aside from the Russia-Trump campaign collusion investigation.
Look, I'm not going to tell you who I talk to, where I go.
Almost always surrounded by reporters these days, almost everywhere he goes, San Joaquin Valley Congressman Devin Nunes from Visalia is under fire. The embattled chairman of the House Intelligence Committee is fending off demands from Democrats that he recuse himself from the investigation into possible collusion between Russia and Trump campaign associates.
But are you going to stay as chairman and run this investigation?
Well, why would I not? You guys need to go ask them why they're, why these things are being said.
So can this investigation continue as you as chairman?
Why would it not?
Because
aren't I briefing you guys continuously?
Nunes denies charges that he's deliberately slowing down the investigative process, having held only one public hearing on Russia, and a second was scheduled for Tuesday. But after Nunes announced last week he had read confidential intercepted communications involving members of the Trump transition team, the second hearing was abruptly canceled. And the revelation that Nunes visited the White House grounds the day before he was shown the intercepted communications raised some eyebrows as well. Now the White House is firing back.
I've said it from the day that I got here until whatever, that there is no connection. You've got Russia. If the president puts Russian salad dressing on his salad tonight, somehow that's a Russian connection. But the reality is, oh, no, hold on. No, at some point, report the facts.
But Burbank Congressman Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, says Nunes, who was a member of President Trump's transition team, has lost his objectivity and is more concerned with briefing the president than briefing the members of his own committee.
The issue is whether the public can have confidence that we will get to the bottom of the Russian meddling in our election, that we will do so in a way that the White House won't be putting its hand on the scale.
Now, even some Republicans are sounding concerned about the House Intelligence Committee chairman.
Well, I think there needs to be a lot of explaining to do. I've been around for quite a while, and I've never heard of any such thing. And obviously, in a committee like an intelligence committee, you've got to have bipartisanship. Otherwise, the committee loses credibility.
The problem that he's created is he's gone off on a lark by himself, sort of an Inspector Clouseau investigation here.
The canceled hearing on Tuesday was supposed to feature former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates talking about the Justice Department investigation of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. In January, Yates, who was later fired by President Trump, told the White House that Flynn had misled the White House about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. Now, CBS News has obtained this letter from the Justice Department to Yates' attorney, warning there was a limit to what she could reveal in her testimony and that she needed to consult with the White House before the Tuesday hearing. Yates' attorneys contacted the White House lawyers last Friday, but they never responded. That was the same day Nunes canceled the hearing. The White House denies it prevented Yates from testifying.
I hope she testifies. I look forward to it. But to suggest in any way, shape, or form that we stood in the way of that is 100% false.
Right now, I should be sitting in a hearing, and the American people should be hearing from Sally Yates.
California Congressman Eric Swalwell, a member of the Intelligence Committee, talked with CBS Evening News correspondent Jeff Pegues.
This is what cover-up behavior looks like.
That's pretty strong to say that.
And it's our job to get to the bottom of what's going on, but right now, the American people want transparency, and what they are getting are more and more smoke bombs.
Now, tonight, one Republican has joined the Democrats in calling for Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. That would be North Carolina Congressman Walter Jones, who said the only way to bring integrity to the process is for Nunes to step aside.
Well, Dave, as this investigation into Russia kind of goes at a snail's pace, I mean, of course, government the wheels tend to go pretty...
And that's being kind about
it,
too,
pretty
right?
slowly anyway. Is this damaging Trump and the administration right now with what's happening?
It's a little early yet, and there certainly doesn't appear to be any public uproar at this point, but there are some potential dangers, mainly if it continues to drag on the way it is now at a sort of drip process. It may remind some folks of the Watergate scandal, some older folks like myself, of course, which moved at a very similar pace. That doesn't mean the outcome will be the same, but it may slowly, quietly eat away at public confidence in the administration. Of course, in the Watergate case, it was the cover-up that destroyed the Nixon administration, and it took a long time to unfold. But that's just one possibility. We're still a long way from that now. Nonetheless, some Dems and Republicans are asking, why don't they just put their cards on the table and have public hearings and get it over with? Lena, back to you.
All right, Dave.